Hi everyone, James here. As I play more Diablo 4, the relationship between armor and damage reduction confuses me more. So I did a few research on armor and damage reduction and would like to share my findings. There are 3 sections in today's video. I'll begin with basic damage reduction formula with armor and resistance. Then do an armor damage reduction deep dive. This includes armor efficiency, armor versus higher level enemy, and percent armor mechanism. And the last part, I will cover what do I do with this knowledge. The armor mechanism is complicated and dynamic. The aim of this video is to give you a high-level idea on the relationship between armor and damage reduction, and offer the necessary tools for you to find out the specific gains in your specific situations. So let's start with the background, the basic formula. There are 2 main cases: physical damage and non-physical damage. For physical damage, let's say an enemy's attack is 100 physical damage. I'm level 87 and have 6557 armor. This gives me 60% damage reduction from the same level enemy. So let's assume the enemy is same level for now. I will then take 40 damage. For non-physical damage, let's say an enemy's attack is 100 lightning damage. Armor will contribute to damage reduction to half of the total damage, while resistance contribute to the other half. So you will be 30 damage reduction from armor. Let's say I have 40% lightning resistance. In World Tier 4, monsters attack overcome 40% resistance. So you will be 24% lightning resistance. Then resistance will contribute to 12 damage reduction. So in total, I have 30 from armor and 12 from resistance equals to 42 damage reduction. And I will take 58 lightning damage. Now that we know the basic formula, I'd like to dive into why my 6557 armor equals to 60% damage reduction. This section contains lots of numbers. Skip to the last section if you are only interested in the conclusions and the best practices. So Diablo 4 dev shared a few examples on armor to damage reduction in their live stream. From the first screenshot, per unit armor to damage reduction efficiency decreases as players level up. Also, it seems that for a specific level, per unit armor to damage reduction is consistent. For example, at level 88, the damage reduction per armor is around 0.018%. I did some local testings and found out it is partially true. I swapped gears on and off on my level 88 sorcerer and recorded the following armor to damage reduction data points. Then I calculated the differences between armor and damage reduction at each stage and got the per armor damage reduction. So the trend is that as armor goes up, the damage reduction per armor goes up too. I assume what dev shared is the cap of the damage reduction per armor, which in this case, it is approaching 0.018% gradually. Also, one important note is that this damage reduction is more powerful than it looks. Let's pick 2 data points from the first graph. I have 5284 armor. That leads to 41% damage reduction, and 5817 armor, that leads to 48 damage reduction. This 533 armor difference leads to 7% damage reduction, but the actual damage reduction is 11.9%, because let's say the damage is 100. In the 5200 armor case, we're taking 59 damage, and in the 5800 armor case, we're taking 52 damage. Relatively, we're taking 88.1% of the previous damage. That leads to 11.9% actual damage reduction. So I calculated each stage for actual damage reduction. As we can see, it also goes up as armor goes up to a point of 3.5 times efficient or more. One extra note is that for the first 3 rows, I took some armor down to just collect data points, but they are not the common cases. The last 4 rows are the common cases where I have all gear equipped, but swapping with percent armor stats or not. To make it easier to understand, I made 2 common cases. One is skull, 250 armor. The other is 10% armor stat from gear, which usually leads to 500 armor. And we can see on average, 250 armor is roughly 6% actual damage reduction, and 500 armor is roughly 14% actual damage reduction. One thing to note is that all the damage reduction I mentioned above are physical damage reduction. For non-physical damage reduction, I'll skip the calculation steps and put the results here. Assuming the all resistance is 35%. In World Tier 4, that is going to be 21%. In common case, roughly the actual non-physical damage reduction for 250 armor is 3%, and for 500 armor is 7%. And the higher the armor or the resistance, the higher the actual non-physical damage reduction is. Okay, now we have an idea on how 6557 armor leads to 60% damage reduction at level 88. And Diablo 4 dev also shared a graph on how higher level enemy makes armor less efficient. I checked what the dev mentioned in the live stream, and here are the keys. First, armor damage reduction caps at 85%. So the first flat line doesn't mean enemies within 17 levels higher than the player do not depreciate the armor efficiency. But the 2000 armor is too much at level 1 that a level 17 enemy starts to depreciate the armor efficiency enough that the value hits below 85%. Second, when first looking at this graph, I'm not sure whether the armor efficiency depreciation is dynamic to the level difference between the attacker and the player. What if I am level 50 or level 88? Will the 2000 armor be treated as some other value from a level 88 attacker? So I checked the live stream more closely, and the dev explicitly mentioned that usually players can acquire 2000 armor at around level 30. If the level 30 character fight a level 100 monster, the 2000 armor can only absorb 5%. This means that the armor depreciation is only related to the attacker level, not to the level difference. After doing a local testing that I tried to get around 2000 armor for my level 88 character, it says 7% too here. This confirms that the armor depreciation is only related to the attacker level. This also explains that why armor efficiency drops as player level up from the first screenshot, because attacker levels up too. So it is kind of designed to be always hungry for more armor to better survive as players level up. That there won't be a point that armor is enough to hit 85% damage reduction cap because of the ultimately 54 levels higher enemy in Nightmare Dungeon. Okay, now we understand what armor means to both same level and higher level enemies. But how can we acquire more armor? There are two types of armor source. One is base armor. It comes from gears, strength, and elixir or incense. The other is percent armor. It comes from stats from gears or aspects like disobedience. After doing some testing on percent armor, I find it is additive, meaning that if I have 4800 armor and 20% armor, and if I get another 10% armor, it will be 5200 armor instead of 5280 armor. Does that mean stacking percent armor is bad? No, as I mentioned earlier, armor efficiency gets higher as armor grows. And for actual damage reduction, it can grow as much as 3.5 times efficiency. Plus, it makes all armor from elixir or incense even more effective. To give you an example, I have around 6600 armor and around 30% armor. Once I use a 900 armor elixir, my armor goes to 7800. Which is another 1200 difference. And the actual damage reduction is 47%. So this 900 armor means that I'm going to take only half of the physical damage. Isn't that insane? So you may wonder, how would the disobedience percent armor work with this? I find it is additive to the current percent armor. And to my gears, its actual damage reduction is as crazy as 69%. Imagine how effective it is to combine the 900 armor elixir and disobedience. What can I benefit from this armor deep dive? So to recap, for level 85 plus, we can roughly treat 250 armor as 6% actual physical damage reduction and 3% actual non-physical damage reduction. 500 armor or 10% armor as 14% actual physical damage reduction and 7% actual non-physical damage reduction. 1200 armor as 47 actual physical damage reduction. 22 armor from disobedience as 70% actual physical damage reduction. when it has 100 stacks. The lower the level, the higher the actual damage reduction is. For example, 300 armor is roughly 10% actual physical damage reduction at level 75. We can start comparing the person armor stat with other damage reduction stats. When compared to conditional damage reduction like from burning close distant enemy, person armor is worse when the condition is met. When compared to person damage reduction, person armor is better since the majority damage is physical damage. Also, as armor damage reduction efficiency greatly increases to 3.5 times or more, as armor goes up, the more armor, the better. This means the item power of defensive gears matters. The 200 armor on Paragon board from the burning board matters, and the armor from Elixir plays a great role in survivability. And all this gets multiplied by person armor from gear stats. Try to collect as many person armor stats as possible on your helm, chest, pants, and amulet. I was able to use this knowledge to switch my gears to decently survive in tier 66 Nightmare Dungeon and beat it as a level 85 Lightning Sorcerer. Hope this video helps you better understand how armor and damage reduction works in Diablo 4. Use those 250, 500, or 1200 cases to tweak your gear for better survivability and pushing higher Nightmare Dungeon. And use the formula to calculate the damage reduction for your specific case. Leave a comment if you have any questions. Thank you for watching and see you next time.